Have you ever wondered why some men command instant respect, without raising their voice, without chasing, without proving anything? Welcome to Seductive Wisdom, where we decode the psychology of power, attraction, and human nature. If you're here, get ready, because throughout this video, you're going to learn things about confidence, presence, and influence that most people never figure out in a lifetime. So sit back, stay sharp, and let's begin. The fascination with this topic begins with a simple truth. People are drawn to strength, authenticity, and psychological depth, even if they can't always articulate why. When we explore Nietzsche's philosophy, we aren't just looking at abstract ideas, we're touching the core of what shapes human respect and attraction. This conversation matters because it reveals the deeper mechanics behind how we perceive character, intention, and personal power in everyday life. Most people go through life without ever questioning why they admire certain individuals, or why some personalities naturally command attention. Nietzsche pushes us to look beneath the surface and confront the uncomfortable reality that respect is earned through who we become, not what we claim to be. This video opens the door to understanding those dynamics. There is also a cultural misunderstanding surrounding strength, often reduced to superficial displays of dominance or confidence. Nietzsche challenges this, reminding us that true strength is internal, rooted in clarity, discipline, and purpose. By understanding this, we gain insight not only into relationships but into our own potential. The value of exploring these ideas lies in how they can reshape our daily behavior, our mindset, and our approach to relationships. The more we understand about human nature, the more intentional and powerful our actions become. So as we begin, remember that Nietzsche isn't offering rules, he's offering a lens, a way to see yourself and others with sharper precision and deeper awareness. At the core of Nietzsche's thought is the idea that human beings gravitate toward those who exhibit an inner resilience that cannot be easily shaken. This type of strength doesn't come from aggression or control. It comes from a grounded sense of self that remains stable even when life becomes unpredictable. People respect those who show they are not defined by external chaos. When Nietzsche talks about strength, he emphasizes the capacity to endure discomfort and transform it into growth. A person who avoids challenges stays stagnant, while one who confronts difficulty with intention becomes someone others naturally look up to. It's this willingness to face hardship that marks the difference between superficial confidence and authentic power. There is also an element of presence involved, an energy that comes from self-assurance rather than the need to impress. Nietzsche suggests that when a person is rooted in their own values, their presence becomes naturally compelling. They no longer chase respect. Respect flows toward them. Growth is another cornerstone of this idea. Nietzsche believed that a person who consistently pushes their boundaries, developing their mind, discipline, and character, radiates a form of strength that doesn't need validation. People are instinctively drawn to someone who is actively becoming a better version of themselves. Ultimately, the respect we're talking about is not granted because of status, appearance, or charm. It's granted because of the undeniable power of a person who is committed to self-mastery and continuous evolution. This is the kind of strength that resonates, quiet, steady, and impossible to ignore. Self-mastery begins with understanding one's impulses instead of being controlled by them. A person who can observe their emotions without being swept away by them develops a sense of inner authority that others immediately notice. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, it means knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to let something go. Such control creates a quiet confidence that is far more powerful than loud declarations of strength. The practice of self-discipline also shapes how someone moves through the world. Nietzsche believed that a person who cannot command themselves will never command respect. When you demonstrate consistency in your habits, your goals, and your standards, people sense that you are someone who follows through. Reliability becomes a form of power. Mastery of oneself leads to mastery of one's direction. Instead of drifting through life, a self-governed individual chooses their path deliberately. This clarity of intention creates a magnetic presence. People trust those who know where they are going. The world naturally aligns with someone who walks with purpose. There is also an undeniable attractiveness in someone who doesn't crumble under pressure. When challenges arise, the self-mastered person adapts instead of breaking. This resilience makes them a source of stability for others, which breeds both admiration and respect. Ultimately, self-mastery is a lifelong practice, not a finish line. It's the ongoing commitment to shaping yourself into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. And because this journey is visible in your actions, it commands attention without asking for it. The will to power is often misunderstood as a desire to dominate others, but Nietzsche's idea is far more subtle and profound. It refers to the natural drive within each person to expand, evolve, and realize their potential. People respect someone who is constantly growing, not someone who remains trapped in their comfort zone. Growth itself becomes a form of strength. This internal drive manifests as ambition, not blind ambition, but a determined pursuit of becoming more than one currently is. A person who channels their will to power rises above mediocrity, not through arrogance but through effort. This striving creates a sense of momentum that others can feel, making the individual compelling and influential. There is also a creative element involved. The will to power pushes a person to shape their life, to create meaning rather than wait for meaning to arrive. Someone who builds their identity, purpose, and future is inherently more respected than someone who merely reacts to circumstances. Creation is always more powerful than complaint. In relationships, the will to power shows itself as independence. A person who is driven by growth does not seek validation as a form of nourishment. They offer strength instead of demanding reassurance. This independence generates respect because it reveals emotional maturity and inner stability. Ultimately, the will to power is the force that turns potential into reality. When someone lives aligned with this idea, constantly evolving, constantly shaping themselves, they become a figure others watch, learn from, and respect. They embody motion, direction, and purpose, qualities that naturally inspire admiration. A man who constantly seeks approval becomes invisible over time. Nietzsche argued that the moment you begin tailoring your actions to please others, you lose the essence of who you are. Respect, especially from women, is not given to someone who molds himself to fit expectations. It's given to the man who has the courage to be authentic, even when it's unpopular or misunderstood. When someone is deeply rooted in their own values, their energy becomes unmistakably real. They speak and act with intention, not for applause. This quiet assurance creates a gravitational pull. People notice when someone isn't performing for validation but living from conviction. The authenticity becomes magnetic, not manufactured. Society rewards conformity, but admiration often goes to those who stand apart. Nietzsche believed that becoming yourself, fully and unapologetically, is a rebellious act in a world obsessed with masks. Those who respect themselves enough to reject the false layers gain the kind of attention that can't be faked. Authenticity also creates clarity. When a man is clear about what he stands for, people instinctively understand how to interact with him. There is no guessing, no second guessing. This clarity builds trust, and trust builds influence. Respect grows from consistency between a man's words and his actions. Finally, there's a spiritual sharpness that emerges from authenticity. It's the difference between someone who exists and someone who lives. Nietzsche wasn't talking about a performance. He was talking about alignment. A man who lives in alignment with his deepest truth doesn't demand respect. He becomes it. To stand alone in a noisy world is one of the rarest and most difficult acts a person can choose. Nietzsche believed that greatness begins when you are no longer afraid to walk a path without company. People respect someone who doesn't fold under social pressure, who doesn't need a crowd to validate their direction. Solitude becomes strength. There's a kind of dignity that develops when you stop chasing approval and start following your own inner compass. While many conform to avoid judgment, the one who dares to think, act, and live differently becomes a source of fascination. This ability to stand alone is not isolation. It's independence. When you no longer need to be understood to feel secure, you begin to lead instead of follow. This is the kind of quiet authority that Nietzsche admired. Respect follows those who walk with conviction, not those who wait for permission. Leaders are often loners first. This path of solitude also sharpens identity. The less you're influenced by the opinions of the masses, the clearer you become about who you are. And in a world full of noise, clarity is power. People naturally respect someone who seems unmoved, focused, and driven. Lastly, standing alone isn't about rejecting connection. It's about having the strength to choose relationships rather than depend on them. When a man is complete in himself, he stops grasping, and in that stillness he becomes far more respected than those who never learned how to be alone. Nietzsche had little tolerance for those who lingered in resentment or self-pity. He saw it as a form of weakness, an avoidance of responsibility, and a denial of one's own power to create. People respect those who take ownership, not those who blame the world for their circumstances. The man who builds something, who turns pain into purpose, becomes admirable through action, not excuses. Creation is a fundamental force in Nietzsche's worldview. To create, whether it's a vision, a business, a way of life, or even a personal philosophy, is to rise above complaint. The builder earns respect because he contributes. He shapes the world instead of merely reacting to it. He is a force, not a consequence. When a man stops complaining, he starts leading. Every complaint is an energy leak, a signal of powerlessness. But when you shift that energy into problem solving, people begin to see you differently. You become someone who offers value, who finds solutions, who lifts rather than drags. Being a builder also means embracing responsibility. Creation comes with failure, risk, and rejection. But the one who continues despite those things, who keeps building, refining, pushing forward, displays a kind of resilience that is impossible to ignore. Respect follows perseverance more than perfection. Ultimately, it's not just about what you build, it's who you become in the process. The creative path shapes character. It teaches discipline, vision, humility, and strength. And in Nietzsche's view, the man who builds his own world is far more powerful than the man who complains about the one he was born into. Emotional control is not about pretending emotions don't exist. It's about refusing to be ruled by them. Nietzsche didn't advocate for cold detachment, but for strength through awareness. A man who feels deeply but responds intentionally becomes a rare and powerful presence. People respect those who stay centered in storms. Reactiveness signals instability. When a person constantly erupts or collapses, they lose the trust of those around them. Emotional control, by contrast, builds trust and safety. It shows that a man knows how to handle pressure, that he won't be taken down by every frustration or fear. Stability is magnetic. In a world full of impulsive energy and emotional chaos, the one who remains composed stands out. He becomes a symbol of strength, someone others look to when they're uncertain. This calmness is not emptiness. It's focused, restrained power. Control also gives clarity. When emotions don't cloud every moment, A man can think clearly, act decisively, and choose wisely. He becomes a strategist, not just a reactor. That kind of control makes people listen more closely when he speaks, because they know his words aren't just emotional noise. In the end, emotional control is about leadership. Whether in relationships, business, or life, those who can manage themselves are more likely to be trusted with greater responsibility. And that trust over time becomes deep, lasting respect. And so, we arrive at the end of a journey, not just through Nietzsche's mind, but through the deeper truths about respect, power, and who we must become to truly be seen. It's not about domination. It's not about chasing approval. It's about becoming the kind of man who stands so firmly in his own essence that the world can't help but take notice. What did you take from this? What part hit you the hardest or made you see things differently? I want to hear from you. If you made it all the way here, drop a comment saying seductive wisdom. Let me know you're one of the few who stayed, listened, and thought deeply. Remember, become who you are. Nietzsche. Until next time.